You didn't want to go somewhere and be like a fish out of water, struggling to be able to do anything because you just didn't have the technical skill or the experience or the knowledge. And we weren't prepared to come down here and fish the Yateley fish until we felt we'd attained that level. I look back and want to just put my head in my hands and think, God, I spent so many years fishing not as well as I should have. We may have sat there and tinkered around with it together. It's Ted that went and used it like a sharpened machete scything through the jungle. The exploits on SAVs and stuff like that is part and parcel of what forged you into having the mindset of, wow, this is amazing, I'm really enjoying this, every day is different and an adventure, and you can have a laugh, and it's life. It is carp life, it's great. I'm still rubbish. Genuinely. You look at me as if you go, but I genuinely don't think of myself, and it might be perception based on the people I've fished with all my life, but I look at the Tells and the Nigels and people like that, and they're different gravy, you know. But it's good to aspire to be better than you are, and they're my inspiration, is people like that. Alcott, you mentioned Alcott earlier, you know. Inspirational, Lockie, you know. As an angler of my age, reading all about the exploits on SAVs and stuff like that is part and parcel of what forged you into having the mindset of, wow, this is amazing, I'm really enjoying this, every day is different and an adventure, and you can have a laugh, and it's life. It is carp life, it's great.
No, you say you're rubbish, but I want to bring you round to the moment that all of those frustrations presumably evaporated and Heather succumbed. What was that like?
Yeah, I was lucky. Most captures are down to a degree of luck. So you mentioned the wonderful, and I love Mickey Gray. I won't make any bones about it. He's gorgeous in every way. He's one of the nicest men I've ever met. And Mickey sat down and told us, back then when we were sat there, bit green in Mickey's front room, and he showed us pictures of Jay with the black mirror and all the old car park fish and the Match Lake fish and Cobbs Lake fish, telling us all sorts of stories. And he told us something really sensible and common sense, which was going on the Cobbs, you're fishing for a small population of pressured fish, you're waiting for a carp to make a mistake. As simple as that. And that kind of stayed with us forever, because when we were that young, before you've stepped up and gone to somewhere, there's another league up kind of thing, which you should always do as an angler. You should always aim to go and push your boundaries a little bit. Just those steadying, common sense words really made a big difference, I think, because it's so true. In circumstances like that, where the fish are edgy because they've been fished for years by good anglers in a small lake where they're hounded a bit because they're seen the whole time, you are literally waiting for carp to make a mistake. You can do everything right, but if that carp doesn't do something daft and straighten the hook link, you know, you're not going to get the bite off of it. Or you could do what Scottish Brian was doing, fish pole floats and pellet and stuff like that on the cops. He made numerous opportunities, you know. But again, you observe someone like that and go, okay, learn by it, you know, see what someone else is doing successfully and try and draw a little bit of into your fishing. So all of these anglers that I've been so lucky to have as friends, I just try and learn a little bit from them, even if I can't be like them.
So Heather.
Scabby leather.
I want to know what it was like when what presumably was the culmination of that decade was in your net.
It was more about the circumstances of that weekend. It was a weird weekend. So it was the first weekend of February. So somehow or other I contrived to catch 3 February car park fish. 2 years and 1 day apart, each and every single one of them. Really weird, the pattern. So 2000 on February, I think the 6th, I had baby orange out the curly. That was a weird capture. And I mean, mind-blowingly weird. Absolute fluke. Don't know how I absolutely deserved it. I wanted to fish the back of the remnants of the weed beds from the curly fishing over towards Trumpton's. I'd seen some very possible activity. It's February kind of thing. There's a light westerly blowing over my head. It's just in past the wind line. Not entirely sure what it is going on out there, but I wanted to have a rod out there anyway. And I never use a marker float anymore, but I had a marker float out there on a beautiful crackdown spot right next to the weed. And I had to redo all my rods. That's it. So I keep looking out the window, just trying to work out what was it, because my memory's terrible. I found a beautiful crackdown spot in amongst the edge of the weed, and was desperately trying to get a beautifully just tied, perfect in every way, his stiff rig out next to the float. And after about 8 casts, I'm like, this is absolutely dreadful. And I've carried on another few casts, and one's landed like a rod length and a half to the right of the float, but absolute crisp crackdown, you know. Oh, that'll do. I've had enough of it. I had one of those little tied and emotional fishing moments, you know. Oh, that'll do. I'll just get the next rod ready and I'll have that just on the other side of the float. It'll be fine. And so I had a piss tight line to this single hook bait out the width of this room away from a marker float. I'm just sat there. It started hailing with an easterly, I think it was, turned round just on the low pressure change of a big hailstorm coming in. Started smashing down, and that rod that was sat out there on a single just rattled off. And that was baby orange, and I nearly cried on that capture. Someone laughed at me, I think it was Hampshire Graham, because there was that horrid little bush just to the right of the platform in the Curly Whirly swim. Like, Curly Whirly swim's the main open water swim on the Carp bank. You had kind of like the Island Swim, Desi's, Tray Bins, which is named after Tracy and Robin Dix. I'm not allowed to even go near that story because otherwise Robin will kill me. But Tracy caught Heather, allegedly. And then Curly, and then the next one up was Bars, where Toward caught Heather. So this horrid bush came out about 6 foot off the bank on the right hand side, all twiggy and gnarly. We used to sit there with our willow sticks and fish all day, every day with floats on them. In fact, I think I lost Chunky on my float rod there one time, which kind of ruined the chance, which I didn't realise. It was right at the end of the season, and little John Coxhead had been working the Island Swim, and Chunky he really wanted Chunky, and Chunky had been coming in on his spot every morning. This one morning I've hooked something which has just gone ting, kind of thing. It never turned up on his spot again, which was just down the margin. And he was like, oh, you ruined it for me, Lewis. But anyway, so it's got in this bush, and I could see like one of the car park mirrors just turning head over head, kind of just caught on this little twiggy branch. And by now, every single member on the lake stood in my swim, going, "Aah!" And I'm just about to jump in, and I did the last gasp, put the rod tip right under the water. I can see the little twig it's on, and pull it at a tangent away from the end of the twig, and it just unwrapped itself, and we scooped it. And I was like, I thought I was going to lose that. I literally properly welled up. It was like a nightmare. But that was the probably my first bite in a year and a half. You know, so the thought of losing something and you just see it there was just terrible. Then I had on February the 7th, 2002, I guess. Who knows? These are made up dates except for the February bit. 1 year blurs into another. I caught Dusty Bin off the beach on hinge stiff rig, unsurprisingly, chocolate malt pop up with a little chocolate malt stringer just tied onto the loop at the bottom of the boom. It was beautiful. Someone else claimed that I caught that because of them, but it wasn't. He said he'd put in 10 key the week before, watched him put in about 100 boilies, so he can say what he wants. Dusty Bin, beautiful carp, loved that fish. That was exciting and brilliant, fought like an absolute hero. Wasn't my first capture, so it didn't really like create the same rush that first captures of fish do. And then 2 years and a day later after that, so I think it was February the 8th, 2004, turned up. It was the moon phase, new full moon, a mildish northerly, so that it was a full moon, very thick cloud cover, a mildish northerly. We'd just come out of a really cold spell, and I think it was Darren Miles had Uglo. This is what kicked it off. The weekend was so mental. You've got to put in the context of what happened. I think it was Darren Miles had Uglo out of, or Uglo came out of the curly. Then someone had one of the oranges, probably baby orange, because big orange I don't think did a February capture, out of the island. And I was in waiting man's just to the left of Trumpton's. And the night before I'd heard a really big fish. I was on Trumpton's the night before. So this harks back to the whole thing about there were opportunities. It's just a case of making the effort and putting yourself in a position to be lucky. I was on Trumpton's the night before, and a real big fish had shown left-hand side of waiting man's, only about 45 yards out. Not really the gate swim, definitely my water. I'd lined it up and thought, I'll check that tomorrow and see whether I can find anything. And it was really irky and nasty out there, but I found one little hump which was absolutely cleaned off, which I didn't know was there. But you're always finding spots like that in a weedy lake, aren't you? They come and go. They're not permanent features. The hump's there, but you can't get a lead down to it. And I had some red maggots. Fishy Dave, remember him from the forum? You keep talking about the forum. You must remember Fishy Dave. I'll tell you the story about Fishy Dave once I've stopped whittering on about the scabby leather. Well, Fishy Dave moved on to Trumpton's. I've moved into waiting man's. I've led it around, found this absolutely cracking spot, put what I had left of some red maggots and some crumbed, God knows what bait that was. What was Nash's red fish meal that we all used back then? Pursuit, yeah, out there. And woke up the next morning. The lake had done 2 mirrors in the afternoon before, that morning, and I woke up to me Nev wasn't beeping. All I could hear was and a lot of roller buzzers can do it if the reed switch can't keep up with the rate that the magnet's going past. And I've got out, picked the rod up. It was that rod on the hump, and I'm thinking, oh, this is a different bite to any other bite I've ever had on this lake. It's cold northerly pumping down the lake. I'm just thinking, what is going on? It's February and it's done 3 bites, a third of the fish in the lake, I mean, in a 24-hour period. And it's literally just bulldozed across the lake. Pretty much, I was scared it was going to go around the island, between the islands from Desi's, which is right over the other side. Then it's done a monumental kite right the way around in front of Trumpton's, to the point where Fishy Dave, famous Fishy Dave, picked me up, put me in my waders. I got in and I just managed to get an angle to bring it back around the front of the platform and play it out. And Heather's gone in there in the net after a proper battle. You know, every great capture that you remember the best, the battle's truly monumental. It's part and parcel of the reason you go. The bite, the battle, the rest of it, dealing with the fish on the bank and whatever's scary, and you just want to get them back happy and healthy. And I saw the scabby leather go in the net, and it's just like meltdown, you know. It's to me, it was something which was always going to be unattainable. I never ever thought for 1 second that I'd catch Heather. I thought I'd catch the others, but Heather was the unattainable super hand in the sky. I never thought, I'm never going to win the lottery and I'm never going to catch the scabby leather. But there it was in the net, and you've just got to take it in. And everyone's so good and so cool, and the syndicate's so really nice and genuinely happy for you that you just get swept from that point forward on a further, like you're on a magic carpet, you know, going to a new destination. It was brilliant. Just the whole experience. Your mates are there. They're as happy for you as you could possibly hope for them to be. And that was it. It seemed to go like a blink in the eye. You know, the whole thing, because of the adrenaline rush and the focus on making sure that one of the country's great history fish isn't damaged in your care kind of thing. You just want it done and back. But it was great, and it was one of those things which is a wonderful yet vague memory, because it is a long time ago now. You know, I don't think of the Yateley days very often, because I've done so much fishing back then. But before we go on, Rich, can I just tell you my Fishy Dave story? Fishy Dave was one of these anglers. He did well. I think he had 4 mirrors by very simple, effective boilie fishing. He was there the year when there wasn't much weed, and he got opportunities he was fishing Maple Lake, scattering out there quite a lot of bait and just fishing in stiffs out there. No rocket science, just good solid angling. But he was a terrible, terrible scene angler as well. He was just lucky that he caught a few along the way. He's a real nice guy, but he asked me, he got Yateley Angling Centre to do him a set of, you're wondering where this is going, to do him a set of custom rods. And for some reason, he didn't know what to have written on the rods. So he's rung Yateley Angling Centre up and said, I don't know what to have written on my rods. Can you ask Lewis? All I did was, he was a lovely guy, and I feel bad taking the piss out of him. I'm taking the piss out of you now, Dave. Sorry, I don't mean it. But it is a funny story. So he's rung up Yateley Angling Centre, and Kingy's rung me up. And I've got a bit of a weird one here, Lou. Like, Dave's rung up. He's got some rods being made. He don't know what to have written on them. Well, my mate Nick Jones used to call him Lilac. Lewis's internet lover is a cock, that was short for. So we got Lilac 1, 2 and 3 written on his rods and explained to him what it meant once he went and blinked them up. Oh, poor Fishy Dave, he didn't deserve that. But it was a beautiful story. Poor Dave. Lewis's internet lover is a cock, and that's from the forum days. Fishy Dave on the Semtex forum. So, how it all comes back on itself.
Beautifully told. The narrative arc.
Oh,
Stunning.
it's just horrific. The things I've done. That poor man. All he was just someone aspiring to fish somewhere great. But he was just a little bit too puppy doggish and got brutalised with his rods. I can think of worse things to write on there.